by updating each pixel as the average of its four neighbors, left, right, up, down, repeating this thousands of times until the image converges. The key thing is that each pixel's update doesn't depend on what other pixels are doing in the same round, so you can update all of them at the same time. That makes it easy to parallelize, and also, as they say, it makes it embarrassingly parallel. The paper offers two versions of the solver, one for small regions and one for larger ones, and it runs on 5 different backends. There is a CPU version, OpenMP for multi-core CPUs, MPI for multiple machines, CUDA for the GPU, and i3 which works on both. Before this paper, people had tried different approaches. As such, the original 2003 paper introduced the idea that the solver was completely sequential, one pixel at a time. Later papers tried using GPUs and smarter solvers, but each one had a catch. Either the parallel part was limited, or it only worked on the full image, or there was no GPU at all. Our base paper from 2021 is the first one that fully parallelizes the core solvers across CPU, multiple machines, and GPU, and actually measures the speed up. That's what we're building on. Now, Alisher will tell you about the gaps in these literature and also to
Now I'll be discussing.
our solution to each
Now
gap.
I'll be discussing the gaps in these papers. When we look at the gaps, they are basically being solved and being fixed on, worked upon in an incremental manner, but that is still not sufficient. So the first one was a very basic core CPU sequential algorithm, which had no GPU acceleration whatsoever. After that, in 2009, the GPU acceleration was added, but only in the post and pre-processing algorithms, not in the uh, actual algorithm itself, the actual solver. After that, in 2011, we had the full Fourier transform, which solved over the entire image, not on the mask, but on the entire image, which was basically a waste of resources and a waste of processors. After that, in 2013, we had a parallel multigrid, which basically used a multi-core CPU in which there was no GPU acceleration, but there was acceleration using CPU threads. So, and there was no MPI scalability experiments, and there was a lot of load imbalance here as well, because the masks are usually non-rectangular. After that, in 2018, there was a pure theoretical analysis in which a single core CPU was assumed. There was no GPU acceleration. It had no implementation whatsoever, but it proved that the speed up can be achieved. Speed up could be achieved more than 10x or up to 10x. After that, in 2021, which is the modern method, Jacobi convergence was sort of parallelized, but it is still slow, which has thousands of iteration per thread, and it lacks adaptive convergence, which I'll get to in a moment, and it lacks load imbalancing in the MPI cluster communication. As I mentioned before, that is because of irregular masks. Now, our parallelization strategy is such that we will tackle every single paper, and we'll attempt to fix their shortcomings. So the first one, obviously, for the first paper, will have the hybrid GPU acceleration, in which we will use hybrid MPI as well as OpenMP. And for the second one, we will use a CUDA implementation with shared memory. After that, we're going to do the adaptive convergence check, which is very important. So basically, adaptive convergence is going to limit our number of iterations. So instead of going a fixed number of iterations, we'll check the change in the pixels. So if the algorithm completes beforehand, we'll stop right there, instead of going for the useless iterations, which will have no work whatsoever. After that, there is mask aware load balancing, which is basically will keep the mask in mind while distributing the load on the MPI clusters. This is very important for irregular masks. So these are the gaps, and these were the solutions we proposed, as I have gone into pretty detail in the previous slides. However, the adaptive convergence check also needs a fallback mechanism, which is a little complex to be explained in 5 minutes, but I will still try. That there needs to be a global K value, which is either maintained by the master process, or which is either maintained via barrier synchronization. So we have a fallback, so that it does not go infinitely if we never converge to a small gap.